Do you also find it difficult to build up a meaningful relationship with your grandchildren at a distance? As a long distance aunt to a 2-year-old in Australia, I wanted to create a solution for the millions of family members who cannot be physically together all the time. This is why I created Peekabond, an app that helps you to connect with young children at a distance. The app works with the following 3 steps. First, we give playful activities suggestions that are based on your child's development stage. These suggestions are science-based and gamified. Secondly, you can create a private family circle. And finally, we'll let you send videos back and forth so you don't have to be live at the same time and save them in one spot for your grandchild to watch. We've got over 120 content suggestions. You can build a love bank for your grandchildren. And if you go to the Cool Grandpa website and look for the affiliate links, sign up for a newsletter with a lot of inspiring content, or you can try the app for free.
Hey folks, I want to talk to you about this application Readio. I strongly recommend Readio to help grandparents and parents read to their grandchildren remotely when they can't be in the same room. Whether you're living across the country, across the world, or you're just gone on a business trip, Readio makes it easy for you to read to those young ones when you're away. It's a super easy tool that allows for video monitoring across the top of the screen so they can see you and you can see them, as well as having the book prominently displayed, making it easy for you to read to those young ones, or better yet, having them read to you. What I want you guys to do is go to cool-grandpa.us, look for the affiliate link for Readio, click on that link, and sign up today for your free trial. Welcome into the Cool Grandpa Podcast. I'm happy you've chosen to join us for our awesome conversation today with Anieke Lamers. Anieke is a co-founder for an application called Peekabond. And Peekabond is an application that helps bridge the distance between older family members and younger family members. You guys are going to be in for a treat learning how this former venture capitalist has started this application and is on a mission to make sure that families develop healthy, strong relationships, no matter how far apart they live. So without further ado, let's jump into our conversation. Hello, and welcome to the Cool Grandpa Podcast. This is your host, Greg Payne, coming at you from Studio 12. This podcast is about being the best possible grandpa you can be, focusing on what it is to be a grandpa and how we can all share that experience together for our grandchildren. Hi, Anneke. I really appreciate you being on the Cool Grandpa Podcast. This is going to be a really cool conversation because you are developing a way that grandparents and aunts and uncles and parents can connect and grow relationships with young people. And so I'm excited to learn more about this and want to welcome you in. And then if you can tell us a little bit about your background, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much, Greg, for having me here. I'm super excited to be on this show and have an opportunity to connect to your audience, which are obviously super cool grandpas. So and the reason that I joined is, of course, because a lot of my audience is also grandparents. At Peekabond, we help people connect with young children at a distance. I founded the company because I have a little niece who lives in Australia, and I myself live in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. And I found out that it was super hard to build a meaningful connection with young children when you're not in the same place. So I decided to look for all sorts of opportunities and things that are already out there. But it didn't really suit my need because, of course, you have all these reading apps like Reading Online and stuff. But I wanted to have a bit more like an activating relationship. And also, we weren't online at the same time all the time because my niece we have like a 10-hour time zone difference. And my parents actually, they got divorced and they at a certain point had grandchildren on 3 different continents. So aligning agendas to have those live video calls is quite challenging, as you can imagine. And planning with young children in general is quite a challenge. So that's why I decided, okay, if it's not out there, I'm going to build it myself. So basically, we've built a digital playground for families around the world to do all sorts of games and playful activities that are based on child development science, and that helps to develop a meaningful bond. So it helps to develop the bond as well as social emotional skills.
Oh, that's awesome. What now? One of the things I want to ask you about in terms of some of the differentiation between just like a FaceTime or just some of the video applications that are out there is what makes Peekabond different in terms of sharing videos back and forth.
Yeah, that's a really great question, and a lot of people ask me this, of course, because they are very used to using FaceTime and WhatsApp. So that's kind of like our key, I guess, tool that we are not replacing, but we're adding on. And what makes us different is that we have that inspiring content in our platform. So what you do is really you log in and you select the age of your child that you want to connect with. And our app gives then content suggestions that are tailored to the age of your child. So can even be a child that's only like half a year old. You can already play simple games like Peekaboo with a baby, where they can recognize your face, get used to your voice. And even though, of course, they're just developing a lot when they're that young, it already helps to connect on a very basic level. And when they grow older, we give suggestions like, for example, singing a song or doing a dance together. And when they get even older, you can do all sorts of magic tricks. So we inspire to give those content suggestions. And another thing is that it's really focused on young children. So we want it to be a very safe place where parents can protect, their child's data. And everything is stored in one spot where a child can actually watch all those videos in their own time if they like to. Because what happens now is often that these messages, these videos, and everything, they are just scattered in a media file. And parents, when they show their phone to their children through WhatsApp or FaceTime or whatever platform they use, the children might be, swiping for photos and also coming across photos that they are not supposed to see from the parents or from family members. And this is really a dedicated space for the children where everything is in one spot. That's safe and secure.
Oh yeah, well, and I've been using the application now for a couple of weeks, and what my experience has been fantastic in terms of we can set up these things called circles, right? And they're connection points. And so I can set up a connection point with my wife and my daughter-in-laws, and I can either share a video with one daughter-in-law or with both daughter-in-laws. So if there's a video that's just I want to send to my grandson, I can do that, and then it's shared with that daughter-in-law.
So yeah, that's correct. We do have a family circle where you can, choose whoever you want to share with. So yeah, I obviously have, being a child of divorced family, also two different families that I'm sharing videos with, and I'm also testing it with my team. So I'm actually, in fact, having 3 circles, and it works really great to be having a high quality small environment where you can share about your life when it suits you best. So you don't have to be live at the same time. You can just send a video when it suits you, and the child can ultimately watch it when they're in the right mood as well for it. And they can watch it over and over again, right? So if it's for example, a recording of you reading a story, they can read it as many times as they like. And that power of repetition is also quite strong.
Oh, absolutely. And what I like too is that how you had talked earlier about how easy it is to find the video that you want to share. Because of course, when my sister or daughter-in-laws send me a video of the grandchildren, then of course my wife wants to see it almost immediately as she comes home from work, and I say, oh, I have a new video. It's very easy to find it. To your point, I don't have to scroll through a lot of text messages to find a video. It's right there. And then she also can have access to it. I can then share it with her, with being within the circle. The other thing too is this idea of cards that you have in the application. And you had mentioned about the prompting of age level appropriate activities. One of the things that I found was interesting was the being prompted to help draw a caterpillar with my grandson. And it's really simple, but it's interesting that you guys have taken that developmental science, right?
Mm-hmm.
And have applied it into the technology.
That's correct. Yeah, we even have a chief scientist in our team. She is a master in child development science and also did a PhD. She's super strong at gamification as well, so how to make it very engaging for children and grandparents. And we try to link as much as possible the content suggestions in our app to the specific milestones that children go through. So those are mainly social emotional skills, but also language, communication, and in some instances also like soft or hard motoric skills. One of the prompts, I don't know if you've seen it yet in the app, but I'm sure you'll come across it, is to put a spoon on your nose. It's a very simple trick that I actually learned from my grandpa, which is a super easy way to kind of like mesmerize children. Like it's something that's such a small thing to learn, and kids love it. Like, how long are you going to balance the spoon on your nose, and when is it going to fall off, and can they also try it? So these kind of like magic tricks are super simple, but also really engaging for children.
Oh yeah, it's great. Well, and what I like too is that it takes some of the pressure off of myself and probably other grandparents or aunts and uncles, parents, for coming up with an activity or coming up with something. I at the end of a long day, I may be a little burned out, and I'm not as creative. And so being prompted to put the spoon on the nose, or sit down and start drawing a caterpillar with your grandson, all those things are absolutely fantastic. Have you guys been able to start to get feedback as far as how the relationships are developing and maybe becoming a little bit deeper using the application and the videos versus just letter writing or phone calls?
Yeah, definitely. We've had some feedback. As a matter of fact, one of our angel investors is actually a user of our app or, himself. He's also a grandparent. And one of the insights he's given us, which I thought was really amazing, is he always feels a bit objected calling his grandchildren because he doesn't know if it's the right time, and he doesn't want to barge in on their lives. And he doesn't want it to be a liability to the parents because they're already quite busy enough as is. Like, especially during the pandemic, parents have felt so stressed to balance work, life, and then also having to connect their children to grandparents at a distance. So, using our app, he was actually able to engage with the children at a distance in a way that he hasn't done before. And I myself am actually even testing with my 2-year-old niece what it would be like to, for example, babysit at a distance. I know it sounds really weird, but I've tried it a couple of weeks ago for the first time, and it went so well. I actually spent a whole hour with my niece, who's only 2 years old, remote. My sister had prepared like a video call camera, and she had, of course, baby prepped the room a bit so that she couldn't do anything dangerous. And we had a backup plan. We had a phone next to the laptop in case she would do anything naughty, that I could immediately have my sister on speed dial. And I think, due to the fact that we're in touch on such a frequent base, I become less of an abstract thing for her. She knows me very well. And she's very comfortable to just have playtime with me for a whole hour, whilst my sister was in the other room working because she had a pretty stressful week that week. So yeah, that I think illustrates a bit on the effects that our app already have after like using it for a shorter period of time. I think ultimately the best proof of the pudding is when you then see your child in real life, right? So some of the insights that I've gotten from the grandparents also is that they're afraid that their grandchild won't recognize them when they see each other in real life because they don't see each other every week. And it takes a couple of days to warm up, to get used to each other again. I think the fact that, well, I'm of course doing this for almost 1.5 years now, and with my niece, and I saw her in November, and when she was at the airport, I could see her eyes spark up when she saw me, and she just fell into my arms. I'm almost getting emotional again thinking about it because it was such a special moment, but also proof for me that it's working what we're doing. And there's that's such a satisfying feeling. Also, getting those messages from grandparents that they are doing it and they're trying it and they see results. So yeah, that's I guess yeah, really proud of that.
Yeah. Well, what you talked about was really powerful in that, it takes that relationship, that long distance relationship, from being something that's abstract to being, if we think about it, most of the relationships, the long distance relationships, 50, 60 years ago, even longer, was primarily letter writing, maybe a postcard. And so you could get to know someone a bit through letter writing. And then when phone calls became a little bit more popular, and I'm not quite sure how it worked in the Netherlands, but in the United States, if you were calling across state boundaries, there was higher fees for your telephone conversations.
Wow. Yeah.
So you would always try to time a long distance phone call to be on the evenings or the weekends, but it allowed you to, at least at that point, hear someone's voice. So you may not see them, but now you've got a voice along with letter writing. And then now with the technology that you're helping to develop, it's moved even more to being where, hey, these young children can now see their aunts and uncles and their grandparents and parents that might be on long trips and maintain that connection, especially when they're so young. I think that imprinting of what somebody looks like and the nonverbal communication that goes on, right? Even with us, it's the smiles and it's the nodding of the heads and it's the eyes getting larger or squinting a little bit. All these nonverbals now are being communicated with those youngsters. And of course, during the pandemic, when they're not in the play groups the same way that they were a few years ago, a lot of little children miss out on some of that social interaction. And so I think this just helps out even more with that interaction. Plus, to your point, it gets to bring the family closer together, especially as we have, like you said, you've got divorce and then you have blended families and then you have different number of grandchildren and connections grow. Peekabond really helps with maintaining and growing those connections. So I think that's one of the biggest things that I've enjoyed as I've started to use the application even more is that, seeing my granddaughter more often. And I haven't done the virtual babysitting yet.
No,
so
that's next level. That's also not a solution yet in our app, but you can use obviously a lot of the suggestions that we give in the app also when you're live calling, of course. So, yeah. But to your point with respect to the imprinting, it actually is so true what you're saying. An estimated 40% of children lack what's called secure attachments, which are crucial for success later in life, and also research also shows that 40% of grandparents regularly feel lonely. I don't know if these two overlap, like if they are from the same families, but I think there's really a very important thing between the bond between grandparents and children, having that mentorship of someone outside your parents. So having that social support network, not necessarily from your own parents, but also on a broader level. I think when I was a child, I went, I guess, as more a teenage phase, a difficult phase, and I once had a talk about this with my life partner, and he had the same. Is that maybe everyone at a certain point like walks away from home, like being a little rebel, and we both ended up at our grandparents' place having a cup of tea, and they just settling everything down. We stayed over for the night, and the next morning we ended up back home, and everything was okay. So it's almost like having that warm bond with someone outside of your parents. I think so important for your confidence and for success also in life.
Oh, absolutely. Because I think too is that, and you mentioned this, is that grandparents really can't play that trusted advisor role, and that relationship of safety if you haven't started developing that early in a person's life.
Yeah.
It would be impossible for me to have that kind of relationship with a teenager if I've never connected with them when they were younger. And it doesn't mean that you can't grow relationships later, but it means
that's true.
We're laying groundwork for that.
Yeah, having a solid base, having that feeling that there's always a network that can support you, no matter what. And that is, of course, what happens in a lot of families. That is really helpful, and feels great to have as a human being, right? To have that support network. Yeah.
So what are some of the I don't know, roadmap items? If I'm putting on my IT hat. And,
I love it. And I know a lot of grandparents, like especially granddads, they love gadgets and what's next? What's the next feature? Well, I mean, we have, of course, the short-term and longer-term perspective. One of the things that I just thought of when you said like, oh, like 50 years ago, we were just writing letters, or I don't know how many years ago, and what will the future look like in 50 years? I just thought of, you've obviously heard of the metaverse, and that people are walking around with virtual reality glasses on. And I think, 50 years from now, how cool would it be if you can just have a cup of tea with your grandchild, or kick a ball virtually with your grandchild on the other side of the world. But that's not yet in our roadmaps. So sorry to disappoint you. But I hope that of course will happen one day. I've seen some really futuristic, cool videos of, the first steps towards that direction. So that would be really amazing. But more like for us at Peekabond specifically, we have a couple of cool things happening. So, for example, our users are asking, hey, how cool would it be if we could actually record the response of our grandchild whilst they're watching my video? So, of course, ultimately, the reason you send a video is because you want to see your grandchild smile and see how they respond to your video. And that's also what happens naturally. Like a lot of kids, when they see a video and the grandparent does something, they even answer the video, even though, it's not a live video. So it's a bit of a shame that answer or the response of the child is not captured. So that's one of the things that we're building as we speak. And we of course also are looking into all sorts of fun filters. I'm sure you've heard of Snapchat, which is maybe not all grandparents are yet on Snapchat, but a lot of the kids really like to have filters. And how cool would it also be if you could, for example, draw a funny face on grandpa when you have a picture of him. And the one that I think that's really cool is that we're also seeing a value of community. I mean, if you're just thinking about the community that you're building and the inspiration that you give to other grandparents out there of how you try to be a grandparent, we think there's a lot of value in that as well. So we are also thinking of building a community around Peekabond where inspirational grandparents like yourself can inspire other grandparents with, hey, this is how I do this with my grandchild. Maybe it's something for you to try as well. So those are kind of like the features on top of my head. And of course, we always have to take it one step at a time. So we have to prioritize which ones go first and which ones are next. But there's so many exciting things on the roadmap for us. So yeah, I'm excited to see what's going to happen first.
Oh, well, and you guys are, I know, have a very smart team because just as you said, there's so many different directions and so many things that you could do. Trying to stay focused and doing one thing well and then building upon each service that you're providing is super important. That's one of the things I've really loved as I've gotten to know you and the organization a little bit, is just how professional and helpful everybody has been and how great the application is. And I'm not just smoozing because I've got a guest blog on your site, and so folks go check out peekabond.com. But there's blogs that you guys have already started helping, in building this and giving information and providing resources for grandparents and aunts and uncles and parents about connections and building this. Because I think one of the things that we're also solving, but we're not necessarily thinking about it top of mind, is building these relationships and building these connections with young people really helps to fight some of the negativity that comes about as people just naturally grow older, right? You get into your preteen years and suddenly you want to be older, and now you're listening to kids that may not have their best interest at heart. You get into the teenage years, and like you said, you're rebellious against your parents, just don't understand. They're stuck in the old ways. But now you've got connections with grandparents and aunts and uncles, and you can go to them versus going to other people that may not have your best interest at heart. So I think
agreeing.
That's one of the I don't know, what would we call that? Secondary benefits?
Effects? Yeah, indirect effect. Yeah. But I think there's another indirect effect, and that is the other way around, right? Almost like a reverse mentorship. Like, I think as adults, we sometimes forget how to be playful. And I see it in my own parents when they turned grandparents. Suddenly they became so much younger. They are more playful, they are lighter. And they're also acting a bit like retards every now and then, just to make the grandchildren smile, and it's just so great to see. And I think somehow when we grow older, we lose connection of that playfulness, and playfulness is so essential for learning. So we definitely want to bring that back in people's lives, and not just in kids' lives, but also in grandparents' lives.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and another benefit too that is that as people get older, our connections drop off as a natural thing. And one of the surprising, I don't know, I forget where I read it. So folks, look this up. But you generally find that men, as they get older, tend to die more from suicide than from other things like, natural causes, let's say.
Yeah.
Because we lose connections. We lose connections at work. We lose family connections. We lose all sorts of things and become very isolated. So this is another benefit to help keep us engaged.
I just got goosebumps when you said that. And one of the articles that I read the other day was about the regrets of the dying. And I was just browsing through them. I think so many of the regrets are linked to what we're doing. One of them was, for example, I wish I would have kept in touch with the people that matter most to me I wish I would have not focused on work so much, but focused more on family. And also, I wish I had spoken my truth, about also being about my emotions. And I guess that what you're saying is very true. Like sometimes, and it's typical that this happens, unfortunately, a lot with men, is that they close off, they don't show their emotions anymore. They don't engage with new people, I guess. I think, having those warm bonds with grandchildren, having that playfulness, and maybe also helping your grandchildren to navigate emotions, like also the hard ones, anger, fear, anxiety, can also be almost therapeutic for yourself, because you're adding so much to your grandchild's life, and in that way you're feeling so much purpose and giving back to the world.
Oh,
So yeah.
yeah, absolutely agree with that. Now, as we start to wrap up this conversation, is there anything that I haven't asked you about Peekabond or connections or even your relationship with your niece that you would like to share?
That's a great question. I think you had so many great questions already, and no, I think I just want to welcome everybody to try out our app, and especially if you have thoughts on how we can improve it. We're a learning young organization. We just started 1.5 year ago. Half a year ago officially, even. So we're a tiny baby, and we're learning every week. So if you have any feedback on how we can improve, please reach out to me. And yeah, we also have a newsletter to share inspiration with people who have little ones at a distance. So not just grandparents, but also aunts and uncles are also very welcome, or basically everyone is welcome. So yeah, that's maybe my last call to action to the crowd.
Oh, very good. Now, what's the best way for people to find you, find Peekabond, and
Yeah,
get connected?
well, I'll just give them my email. My name is Anieke. That's a Dutch name, so I'll spell that. That's Anieke @peekabond.com. And I always try to respond as soon as possible. So yeah, feel free to email me.
All right, Anika. And so I really do appreciate you taking time out of your day to sit down and talk with us, tell us more about Peekabond, and really share your experience and the experience of others with these connections, because we know how important it is. So thank you again for being
Thanks,
very
Greg.
generous.
Yeah, and stay playful.
Oh, thank you. How cool is this? Anika and everybody at Peekabond focused in to bring family members together to help encourage healthy play using technology that can help build and maintain long distance relationships. After you've finished listening to this podcast, please go to my website, coolgrandpa.us, look for the links to Peekabond, and give this application a try. You are going to enjoy how simple it is to get connected, how fun it is to work on these play cards that Anika and I were talking about, and then being able to share videos and video reactions between family members. It's an incredibly useful and powerful application that I suggest everybody go out and download and try it out with their family members. Over the next week, I'd love to hear how you've connected with the young ones in your family using Peekabond. Please go to those show notes at cool-grandpa.us and leave Anika and I some comments. Also, if you have an idea about how to make the application better, take up Anika's offer to contact her directly. I'll be sure to have her email address in the show notes as well. So until next time, remember to stay cool. Thank you for listening to the Cool Grandpa Podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please do me a favor and share it with a friend. That's the best way you can help us to expand our community, as well as get the news out about how valuable grandpas are in the lives of those kids. If you'd like to leave me a comment or shoot me a potential topic for this podcast, please go to www.cool-grandpa.us. Look for the comments tab, fill it out, hit submit. It's as easy as that. Until next time, remember to stay cool.